Jeremy was impressed by Chase's tactics and quick thinking. He nodded his head in respect. Chase had just casually given away nearly $1 million. He was not someone to be provoked. When the whole lobby was still reeling in shock, the front doors swung open. This time, a man in black suit walked in, escorted by over 50 bodyguards. Bodyguards aside, this man had an imposing manner and an extraordinary bearing. The people in the lobby were scared out of their wits. Who was this? Everyone looked at each other, unsure what to do. Finally, someone recognized the man in the suit and bellowed, "That's Chuck Stevens!" While most in the lobby hadn't recognized him, they all heard his name before. Everyone's faces filled with fear, and they lost themselves in excited and nervous chatter. Chuck Stevens? The Chuck Stevens who used to rule Laudervale's underground? I thought he retired. The King of Laudervale? Why is he here? Compared to Chuck, Jeremy was an ant. Even smaller than an ant. What would bring him here? Could it have been Carl? Someone in the crowd thought they remembered Carl working for Chuck at one point. What no one guessed was that Chuck was there for Chase. Of everyone in the lobby, Carl was perhaps the most in shock. He knew Chuck. He knew what he was capable of. He also knew that he hadn't been the one to call him. Trembling, he turned to look at Chase. Could it be that Chase had called him? When Chuck entered the hall, he brushed past Carl, not even bothering to look at him. He walked with large strides towards Chase and said, "Mr. Rothman, I heard you were looking for me?" There was an audible gasp throughout the room. He had indeed come down to Laudervale Tower to see Chase. This was further proof that Chase was not to be trifled with. Carl knew in his bones that it was over. He mustered his strength and stood up. He walked over to Chase and then dropped to his knees, begging for mercy. "Mr. Rothman, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." He grabbed at Chase's pants and pleaded, "I'm sorry, Mr. Rothman. I was a fool. I didn't know. Please, let my brother and I go." At this, Sam, who had been quietly hiding behind his older brother's over-the-top antics for the last several minutes, chimed in. "I'm sorry too, Mr. Rothman. I wasn't thinking. It was inappropriate of me to harass your wife. I know that now." Chase's gaze was abnormally cold. He looked at the two brothers in disgust. None of their pleading would reverse his decision. Their treatment of Celia and their arrogance in the aftermath was unforgivable. He turned to Chuck and said, "I'm done here. I'll let you take care of it." With that, he walked over to Celia, grabbed her hand, and sauntered out of the front doors. Chuck waited until Chase was fully out of sight before turning to Sam and Carl in anger. "I don't want to see you two ever again, you hear me?" "Yes, sir," they squeaked. They began to beg for mercy in unison, but Chuck held up his hand, motioning for them to stop. While they had a certain fondness of the brothers based on their years of working together back in the day, Chase had given him orders, and that was that. He waved his hand, and two of the bodyguards carried the men to the back of the lobby and kicked them out of the back door. From a safe distance, Sasha watched everything unfold. Her face betrayed no emotion, but the repetitive tapping of her high heels suggested she was anxious. Sam had failed at the one job she had given him. Celia's reputation was still intact. Suddenly she turned to a meek woman standing next to her and whispered, "Clean this up. I don't want them to be able to trace any of this back to me." "Yes, ma'am," replied the secretary, before quickly walking off toward the back elevator. Sasha stared out at the building's front doors, trying to deduce which way Chase and Celia had gone. Her anger was growing by the second. How could he still have so much love for Celia in his heart? She was a nobody. Sasha, on the other hand, was a somebody. Without warning, she slammed her palm into the wall beside her, her eyes flashing in rage. If Chase didn't want her, she would see to it that he suffered. She would repay him all the pain that he had inflicted to her over the years. With her palms stinging, she slowly followed her assistant toward the back of the building. She had plans to make. Meanwhile, Chase and Celia were finally in the clear. In the taxi, she leaned against his chest, clearly feeling his heartbeat. He had been there for her today. Her impression of him was changing. Her husband was not someone to be messed with. Suddenly, important people were respecting him, fearing him even. She didn't know what was going on, but truthfully, it didn't matter. What mattered more to her was that Chase still loved her. Sasha had been wrong. When she looked into his eyes, she could feel the boundless tenderness in them. This was enough for her. At the same time, Chase was also lost in thought. Rolling down the window to feel the night breeze, he suddenly said, "Baby girl, haven't you always wanted to know who I am?" "What do you mean?" she asked, raising her head to look at him. Starlight reflected in her eyes. "I always thought you didn't want me to ask." "Do you want to know, baby girl?" he replied quietly. She hesitated for a moment, but then nodded and said, "I want to know." "Okay," he said with a defeated sigh. "I'll tell you everything." But before he could get any words out, she leaned across the car and kissed him. Pulling away for a moment, she smiled and looked out of the window at the night sky swaying before her. "Forget it. Some things are better left unsaid." They sat in silence for a while before Celia said, "Just promise me that when you do see your parents again, you let them know about me. I want you to tell them that I am your wife." Chase smiled tenderly. He looked at her from across the seat, as much in love with her today as the day they met. "Don't worry, baby girl," he thought to himself, his eyes glimmering. "One day, love, everyone will know just how much I love you."
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.